back to the IT Fundamentals Training Series. We're in Chapter 1, Episode 15. You've come through 3 weeks. Once you're done with this one today, it's going to be a light day talking about video cards and sound cards. They're pretty simple devices to take a look at. Join me as we go through this little episode about little expansion cards. Welcome to the IT Fundamentals, Chapter 1, Episode 15. Today we're going to talk about the expansion cards, and we're going to start off with video cards, and we're going to work our way through. Page 43 is where we're going to start in the book. And so, first of all, we need to understand really the only thing we're talking about here is expansion cards, and the purpose of expansion cards is to enhance what might already exist or add to what may not exist on the motherboard. So we're going to start off by talking about video cards, and every motherboard comes with a basic video card on it. But if you're going to do things like gaming, or you're going to do graphics design, or perhaps put movies together or edit movies or audio files, things along those lines, you may need a more capable card. Now, typically these cards are going to go into your PCIe slots on your motherboard. They're going to just slide in there. And again, if you go back a few episodes to understand the difference between PCI and PCIe and other types of slots on the card, that might be a good opportunity to go back and listen to that as a go back and listen to that as a refresher. So each one of these cards is a circuit board in and to itself, and on that circuit board is going to have a whole bunch of chips, but predominantly what you're doing here is you're adding a processor, not a CPU, but you're going to call it a different type of processor that will address just that types of cards enhanced properties. So for example, if you have a video card, or what's also called a graphics adapter, you're going to have what's called a GPU, or a graphics processing unit. It's going to be a chip that's embedded into that circuit board and that allows for that enhanced processing. So with video cards, for example, you're going to have that GPU, and it's going to process the video in higher definition and higher capabilities at higher speeds in order to get it on your monitor than perhaps your standard motherboard video card. Now, when you put in one of these expansion cards into your motherboard, you should then plug in those types of devices into that card and not the one on the motherboard, because this card will override what exists on the motherboard. So for example, if you have an added processor, or an added video card with a GPU, you're not going to plug in one of your monitors into the motherboard and then the others into the expansion card. You're going to plug all of your monitors into the expansion card, and you're essentially not going to use the monitor port on your motherboard anymore. If you're using an enhanced sound card for whatever reason, then you're going to plug in your sound output devices, your speakers or your headset, whatever it may be, into the output on the sound card instead of on the output for the motherboard. So that's what one big thing you need to keep in mind. All right, let's take a look at video cards. So we've talked a lot about video cards already just in this very episode. We've also talked about it on when we were talking about CPUs and GPUs previously, in PCIe adapters. So that seems to always be my go-to explanation for those kinds of things. And that's the first one that we come across on page 43 in this book. So as I said, a video adapter or video card is another term for it. And even another term for that is a graphics card or graphics adapter. All right. So these are expansion cards. And from a perspective of the test, first of all, you need to know those things and be able to reference the names. But then moving on from that, you just need to understand a couple of different pieces regarding, something we've already talked about is the graphics processing unit, or the GPU. And know that that is just an additional processing card in there. And typically these GPUs will have their own fan, their own connectors, and so on and so forth. The one thing that's different about these GPUs or other similar types of processing units that are on the cards is, unlike the CPU that's on the motherboard, you can't take them off. They are statically put on there. All right, the video card, it typically will allow you to generate higher definition graphics, and also has typically has multiple output ports, so you can use multiple monitors in different types of formats as well. So one of our previous conversations, we talked about DVI, DVI-E, and HDMI type of ports, VGA output ports, things like that. So these cards will have multiple output types and multiple output options. And if you're going to use multiple monitors on your computer, you're going to need this type of multiple output. And that's showed in figure 1.27. You see the GPU, which is the black device that's on top of that circuit board. And then on the left-hand side, you can see that there are 3 different output ports there. Some of these have 6 or even 8 output ports, especially if you're using like a flight simulator or some sort of heavy first-person shooter type of game. You can really add the number of video pieces to that. So the only other thing you need to keep in mind here is that they are typically done with PCIe slots. So just kind of keep that in your memory. Some of these cards also have their not only their own GPU, but they also have their own RAM on the video, which is typically less common than certainly having the GPU on there. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, moving on to sound cards. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an expansion card, so you can get higher definition sound, more quality in your sound, both input and output. So unlike the video card where it's only an output, you have no input. So on the video card, for example, you don't have an input for a camera to go into the video. This one on the sound card does have both input and output for microphone as well as headsets or speakers, things along those lines. You can get very simple cards to expand for gaming or flight simulators, things along those lines, all the way up to heavy duty cards that will allow you to process stereo or production quality music, and from multiple channels and all that kind of thing as well, depending on how interested you are in there. So sound cards go by the name of audio cards. So sound or audio cards is what you need to know. Sometimes they have what's called a DA15 game port on there, and when they have that, then what that allows you to do is attach your joystick or your flight yoke or something like that to the card. So these also have input from that perspective. But you should probably highlight that DA15 again. If you have a question on the test, it's going to be one question, and it's going to be, besides the audio ports that are input and output audio ports on a sound card, what else might exist on there? Well, it's a DA15. So that's something you want to take a look at. All right, the next one that's on here is the network card. Now, most motherboards in modern time will have both a network interface card that allows for you to plug in a wire or cable, as well as a wireless output type of thing. So an antenna coming off the back. Figured 1.20 is a wireless expansion card. Back in the day, before wireless was prolific, you probably had a network interface card that took a cable, but you might want to provide the expansion for the wireless piece, so you could do that. Most of again, it's a PCIe. Most of the cards these days are built straight into the motherboard. I would highly doubt that you would need a network interface card or NIC card as an expansion card inside of any computer you have, unless for some reason you want to run off of multiple networks. And then in that case, you might want to have an extra NIC in order to run one network off of one NIC and another network off the other. But I'm using that term NIC, the network interface card. That is the one thing that you probably need to know for the test. Another thing you probably want to put in the back of your head for future scenarios is RJ-45 or RJ45. That is the end connector piece for a standard network cable. We'll talk more about that in this book, as well as the A+ book, which is the second quarter of this training series, and we will certainly talk about it in the third quarter when we're talking about Network Plus. But That's the purpose of a network card. Now, there's another one here that, again, remember this book was written in 2018 here, that's called a modem. And modems, actually, it's an acronym: modulator, demodulator. This used to allow you to connect your computer to a standard phone line. It's got an input and output jack on it, so you can actually run your phone through that and still have your hardwired phone sitting on your desk. Nowadays, we do the same thing with network interface cards and voice over IP. Again, not something you need to know right now, but something for the later. So with this modulator, demodulator here and figure 1.30, just know that modems exist and that the connection is an RJ11. That's all you need to know there. Don't spend any more time on knowing about that expansion card, because the last time I saw a modem was a very, very long time ago. I mean, even network devices these days that need to phone home, if you will, if the network is down, have a cellular connection that's attached to them instead of one of these PCIe cards. So anyway, episode 15 is in the books. Thanks for joining me. Again, you can communicate with me at mhoupt@commonsensesecurity.net. I would love to hear from you. Please take the time to subscribe and offer us a 5-star review, so that, you know, if you're learning what you need to know. If you don't like what we're doing, communicate with me. Let me know. I need feedback so I can understand how to make these better. And if you really don't like what we're doing, there's other people out there that you might like better. That's just, you know, reality. I get it. Not everybody will like the simplistic aspect of how we're doing this. I hope it's meeting some people's needs, but again, don't give us a 1-star review without at least talking to us about it. So have a good day, and hopefully this has helped out. Thanks.